Hey, Mean Matt here. So, at this point in the Wrestlemania game in '97 was almost the starting of the new era, the Attitude Era, if you will. So, I believe that would start in November. Or, well, maybe shortly before that. You know, you had one of the biggest guys in the business, Stone Cold Steve Austin, coming up. You had one of the more vulgar, I guess, uh, dialogue in the WWE or WWF, if you will. And unfortunately, sometimes it didn't fare well with the old school wrestlers. And that would include the Hart Foundation. You know, Bret Hart being one of those traditionalists, if you will. Depends on who you ask. Yeah. But yeah, he is one of those guys that never grew up in that era where there's the cussing and the bad language and the bad hand gestures and all that shit. So, unfortunately, you know, it didn't fare well. So, it was coming into a new era. And new wrestlers were coming up. And it was a little bit more edgier. It got edgier through the years, but '97 is the starting of this whole thing. And so we get the dark match. We have Billy Gunn, who defeated Flash Funk, or Too Cold Scorpio, if you're also a fan of ECW. And he was joined with the Funkette Tracy and Funkette Nadine. I don't remember those. Sort of like a '90s version of Brodus Clay with Cameron and Naomi, the Funkadactyls. Anyways, Billy Gunn won this match. Then we get to WrestleMania. We got the Headbangers, Mosh and Thrash, who defeated the new Blackjacks, Blackjack Wyndham and Blackjack Bradshaw. I said that right, yeah. And the Godwinns, Henry and Phineas with Hillbilly Jim, and Doug Numas and Phil LaFont. So this was a cool match. Of course, the Headbangers are awesome. They came back on SmackDown for a little bit. I'm not sure what happened. They're just a tag team that, you know, they were in Ring of Honor 1 year and they made one appearance there and then just recently on SmackDown. So now I'm not sure what the hell they're doing. And then, of course, there's Bradshaw, of course, JBL, or Bradshaw VPA, if you will. I knew him with Bradshaw, Blackjack Bradshaw, and I knew that. I'm not sure how many matches I've seen from them. I don't remember much of '96 except for two major things that happened, I guess. But I don't remember Justin Bradshaw with Dirty Dutch. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. I don't really remember that. I know my brother would, but anyways. Yes, the Headbangers won. Fuck yeah. And they became the new WWF Tag Team Champions. Very cool match indeed. Then we get Rocky Maivia, or Lariat Stan Lanson would say Rocky Maivia. And he defeated the Sultan with Bob Backlund and Iron Sheik. I can't remember who the Sultan was, but I heard he was a superstar there. Well, anyways, it was joined by Bob Backlund, who came back for a bit to manage him, and then of course the Iron Sheik, who also came back to manage him for a bit. And it's ironic because I said that before in 1982, maybe early '80s. You had Iron Sheik beat Bob Backlund for the WWF Championship, and now they're actually managing this guy. This was a good match. Of course, the Rocky Maivia, Dwayne Johnson, who took the name of his dad and then the last name of his grandfather and joined them together. He was half black, half Samoan, and this guy also half Canadian. But this guy, becoming the Intercontinental Champion, and the first time on Thursday Night Raw beating Triple H, I think that's the only time that Triple H was beaten by The Rock. But anyways, this was a good match. Of course, at the end, the Rocky Johnson came out and helped The Rock win or whatever. And then this will go on to have Rocky Johnson join his son for a while. And that was actually pretty cool. Of course, Rocky Johnson being the first black man and then to be a tag team champion with Tony Atlas, the first black tag team champions, if you will. Yeah, I'm not going to say African American. Anyway, so that was a good match. Then we had, speaking of Triple H, we had Hunter Hearst Helmsley with Chyna defeating Goldust with Marlena. And this was, of course, ended with Chyna bear hugging Marlena. And Triple H, still the aristocrat, he would eventually come into his own character, later joining Shawn Michaels and what would be, of course, D-Generation X. Also with Rick Rude. What's unfortunate is that DX don't seem to want to acknowledge Chyna or Rick Rude. And it's sad, but that's the way it is. The Raw 1000 episode, when they came out in the beginning, you didn't fucking see them mention or acknowledge them, and that's too bad. It really is. That kind of unfortunately shows you what kind of dicks they can be. Anyways, Triple H won. Then we got to Owen Hart and the British Bulldog. The tag team. Wait the fuck. Oh, okay, no. So when I said the Headbangers won the tag team triple threat match, it was a fatal four-way match. It was actually number one contenders for the WWF Championship. My bad. So it was Owen Hart and the British Bulldog who defeated, they took on Mankind and Big Van Vader in a double count out. And that's unfortunate. I don't know. Well, obviously, I think it was the Bulldog and Owen Hart that eventually got the Tag Team Championship. Or who were the Tag Champions, and I'm fucking up, I'm sorry. Anyways, my point being the Bulldog and Owen Hart retained, and then never faced the Headbangers. Anyways, there we get the classic match that, is going to be one of WrestleMania's classic history. Bret the Hitman Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. My childhood hero facing my adolescent hero. And at this point, I'm talking about the Attitude Era. This is the point now where Vince wanted Bret to turn heel. Bret brings up that story on Wrestling with Shadows, and so this match, who was also refereed by Ken Shamrock in The Ultimate Fighter, you had these two guys, and they loved working with each other. They had some really good matches throughout the year or two, and this was good. This also had Bret Hart slap the sharpshooter on Stone Cold, and you have the infamous Stone Cold looking up with the Crimson Mask. Now, unfortunately, Stone Cold passed out, having Bret Hart win, but then it went to Stone Cold because Bret Hart wouldn't let go. So then Bret Hart went and turned heel by beating up Stone Cold, hitting him in the leg and stuff. And so, at that time, people were turning on the classic face, the guy who does everything right, and then they were cheering the guy that was doing everything wrong. You had Stone Cold Steve Austin. At that time, wasn't drinking no beer, but saying cuss words and giving fingers and just being a badass. And then you have Bret Hart that was none of that, but a lot of people were not fans of that side anymore. And to be honest with you, you know, as I was growing up, I wasn't necessarily a fan of Steve Austin at that time, but I was going through those kinds of rebellious changes, and yeah, that would be interesting, you know, see this guy. And then, of course, this being Bret Hart's last WrestleMania for a while. There we get a Chicago street fight. The Legion of Doom versus Ahmed Johnson and the Nation of Domination, which had Farouk, Crush, Salvio Vega, and Salvio Vega. Then, they were with Wolfie, DJC, Ice, and D'Lo Brown, and Clarence Mason. And this was a pretty cool match to see. I love street fights in general. This went to Legion of Doom, who was probably one of the best tag teams of the 90s. And then we went to the WWF Championship match. Psycho Sid versus The Undertaker. And Psycho Sid, of course, I recognized right away when I saw him. He was Sid Justice of the early 90s, maybe late 80s, who knows. I'm not sure where else he wrestled. I know he went to WCW as Sid Vicious, which I don't call him that because of the punk rocker, but anyways. This match went to The Undertaker, so it was fascinating. His second WWF Championship run, and he wins it at another Big Four event. You know, his first being at the Survivor Series, he won, sorry, and now he wins it at WrestleMania 13. This was pretty cool, you know. And like I said, this was a good WrestleMania. This was a good starter to the Attitude Era in the future. You know, everything was changing, and next year is going to be different. You know, this is going to be fucking different, man. And that's all I can say about that. Of course, you would have Bret Hart leave because of the Montreal Screwjob. Unfortunate, because, you know, he had a big downfall from there. Losing Owen, losing Davey Boy, losing his parents, having the stroke. You know, this was just not fair. He would come back in 2010, and he would compete in WrestleMania, which was the shittiest WrestleMania that I've ever seen, but I'll get to that in the future. Anyways, we'll talk to you later. Bye. Of the more vulgar piece of shit. Omega. Hold on. Then, they were with Wolfie, DJC, Ice, and D'Lo Brown, and Clarence Mason. And this was a pretty cool match to see. I love street fights in general. This went to Legion of Doom, who was probably one of the best tag teams of the 90s. And then we went to the WWF Championship match. Psycho Sid versus The Undertaker. And Psycho Sid, of course, I recognized right away when I saw him. He was Sid Justice of the early 90s, maybe late 80s, who knows. I'm not sure where else he wrestled. I know he went to WCW as Sid Vicious, which I don't call him that because of the punk rocker. But anyways, this match went to The Undertaker, so it was fascinating. His second WWF Championship run, and he wins it at another Big Four event. You know, his first being at the Survivor Series of 91, sorry. And now he wins at WrestleMania 13. This was pretty cool, you know. And like I said, this was a good WWE. This was a good WrestleMania. This was a good starter to the Attitude Era in the future. You know, everything was changing, and next year is going to be different. You know, this is going to be fucking different, man. And that's all I can say about that. Of course, you would have Bret Hart leave because of the Montreal screw job. Unfortunate, because, you know, he had a big downfall from there. Losing Owen, losing Davey Boy, losing his parents, having the stroke. You know, this was just not fair. He would come back in 2010, and he would compete in WrestleMania, which was the shittiest WrestleMania that I've ever seen, but I'll get to that in the future. Of the more vulgar piece of shit. Omega. Hold on. He would come back in 2010, and he would compete in WrestleMania, biggest WrestleMania that I've ever seen, but I'll get to that in the future.